So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about 7 types of mistakes that I made during the acquisition process that I wish that I had not made. And these are the 7 mistakes I made and the lessons that I learned from it. I'm going to be sharing this with you right now in this video. So stick till the end and we're going to go one by one what these 7 mistakes were. They were not just around deals, but also the process of building the board, law firms, accounting firms, and the whole process. There were several mistakes that I made when I was starting out, and mistakes are part of business. But I'm sharing these mistakes with you so that you don't have to make those mistakes, and you can learn from my mistakes, and they were painful. So that's the reason I'm sharing this with you. So let's get started. Mistake number 1 is I did not believe in myself. And at the beginning, I did not trust and believe in my abilities. So I was acting, and this is one of the mistakes that I corrected it fast, is because, I started to, as you start to get results, it's easier to believe in yourself. But initially, when you have not had results and you have received only negative feedback from your environment, you tend to have a low opinion of yourself and a low opinion of your abilities and your capabilities. And because you have low opinion of them, you don't really exploit your abilities fully. We don't really exploit our capabilities fully. We don't even know how fast, how far we can go. It's kind of like having a Ferrari and not having the speedometer. And you don't really know how fast you can go until you press the pedal fully. And then you know. But until that point, if you have a low opinion of the car, you're not going to drive fast and you're not going to know how far this can go. Similarly, with your own mind, with your own abilities, with your own ability to figure things out and come up with solutions, we don't really test ourselves and we don't believe ourselves and we don't push ourselves big enough. So initially, I did not believe in myself, but thankfully, I still kept pushing and I kept testing my abilities, and as a result, as I started to accomplish things, I started to believe in myself more and more. And in fact, even though I was accomplishing things, I wasn't believing in it, as weird as it sounds. As things were happening, I thought that these things would be taken away from me and I would lose this position that I have because I don't really deserve it. So I had these low opinions of myself that affected my performance, and that's mistake at number 1, and lesson number 1 is believe in yourself and believe in your capabilities. Just because you haven't done something in the past does not mean that you cannot do it in the future. For example, you may have a belief about yourself that you're not good with maths, and you may link mathematics with finance. And because you are not good at math, you may have a conclusion that I will not be good in finance. But that does not have any basis in reality. You don't have to be good at maths to be good at finance, because you could just use a calculator. Okay. So these things have nothing to do with each other. And I had this belief. That's why I'm sharing this with you. So number 2 is allowing the prospects to vomit inside of your ears. So when I was building my board, I, gave undue authority to these individuals. I just put them on a pedestal and I kind of worshipped them, and I almost believed what they said to me. So I met a lot of people who were negative, who did not really have any intention to join my project, get into a business partnership with me, and they just wanted to have a conversation, and they just ripped the model apart, and they brought their own baggage into the mix. And baggage, bad experiences that a person has had in their life, just because someone has gray hair and someone is older in age, doesn't mean that they are wise. We equate having gray hair with wisdom, but that person can also has a lot of baggages. Even high-profile senior executives can a lot of the times have baggages, and they would put this baggage on your mind also. They would try to inflict this baggage unconsciously, of course. They would put it in your mind also. They would put doubts in your mind, and they would put you in a negative state. So I met a CFO of a local hospital in UAE, and I started to talk to him, and I started to pitch him, and I wanted him to be part of my team. And he said, how are you going to finance the deals? And I said, we are going to be doing leverage buyouts. And he said that leverage buyouts are not happening in this region. And he said, in my last 25 years, I haven't seen a leverage buyout happening in this region. And I believed him, and I went back home, and I was very negative, and then I struggled to get myself out of that state, and I was completely drained, and all my calls that day were spoiled because this person had just vomited in my ears something that had no groundedness in facts. He did not have any ground, any basis to say this except for the fact that he hadn't seen it. But just because he hasn't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, one. And just because something has not happened doesn't mean it cannot happen. So that's another one. And then I went and met a top law firm in the region. And the moment I entered and the moment I mentioned leverage buyouts, the partner in the firm said that we just finished a $350 million leverage buyout a couple of months ago in this region. So, business deals are happening in private, in conference rooms, and they're highly confidential, and not everything is in public. The reason we look at, Apple, Amazon, these companies, we hear about them in public is because they're public companies. But there are many private companies that do not have any requirement to disclose financial information. They don't have any requirement to disclose what deals they have done, what's their revenue size, what's their employee base. They are not required to disclose any of these information to the public. So if most of the companies are private in a particular region, how can a CFO of a different hospital know about a deal that was concluded in the region when that deal was completely private? And the details of that deal and how that deal was financed was all confidential. So how could possibly this person even know about it, even through gossip, right? There are deals which are completely secured and confidential. So he could not know about these deals. And still, because he was older, I let him vomit in my ear and let him affect my mind. So that's a very important point, and you could get disheartened and get slowed down. The third mistake is taking people on face value. So I would start to, call these sellers of, owners of multi-million-dollar companies, and they would tell me they want to sell their company. And initially, I was naive enough to think that just because they're telling me they want to sell their company, that means they really want to sell the company. But a lot of the times, that's not the case. You cannot take people on their face value, and you cannot actually believe what they say. And I was under the impression that just because I'm being straightforward and I'm being honest, the other person is also being honest with me. And we're having a straightforward conversation, and, we are just talking about material facts. But no, people modify information, people lie, and people play games. People don't reveal all the truth. And it turned out that the seller that I met, he was hiding a lot of information from me, and I wasn't expecting it. And he was not telling me the entire truth, and he was just swindling me around. And I did not anticipate that. So I just took him for the face value. And you have to, you cannot believe anything anybody says. You can hear what they say. You can try to speculate what the truth is, but never ever believe. I like to believe documents and even documents you cannot believe, but documents in which you have performed an investigation, you have done your due diligence, you have investigated from multiple sources, and then you come to a conclusion about that person's position. Or you could look at some factual indicators where it's very difficult to lie. For example, if a person was 70 years old then it's a high likelihood that that person wants to sell their company and is a motivated seller. So if you go to buy a company and the person is 70 years old and you can see with your eyes that the person's health is in a bad condition, then you can conclude it's a motivated seller. But if you don't see that and the person just tells you that I am motivated, doesn't mean that he really is motivated, and doesn't mean he's speaking the truth. And same thing happened with a banker. I did a presentation with a bank, and the banker here heard the presentation and he said that it looks like a great deal and we can finance it. And all I need to do is talk to the credit committee and everything's going to be fine and we will be able to finance it. The ratios that you mentioned are all in the range in which we can finance. So just because he said that to me, I believed him. And this is again another classic example, is that you cannot take people on the face value, especially when it comes to acquisitions and buying companies, because people lie and sometimes people do not even have the power and they will just make the claims without having proper power behind it. So this guy turned out that he wasn't in power and he needed approvals. And he said, just send me the information and I'll talk to the credit committee. And I sent him the information and he said, let's talk in 1 week time. So I waited for 1 week like an obedient boy. And I called him after 1 week and he told me that actually the credit committee thinks that the deal is risky, and if you sign personal guarantee, then we would be able to do the deal, and I was like, are you sure you would be able to do the deal if I signed the personal guarantee? And he was like, yes. And then I said, no, I can't sign the personal guarantee. And then I went back, I thought about it, and I came back, I said, okay, fine, I'll sign the personal guarantee. And he was like, okay. And then what I found out is that he hadn't even gone to the credit committee in the first place. He just wasted another week of my time or 2 weeks of my time. And he did not go to the credit committee and he wanted to put me on the hook. And he lied to me saying that I did go to the credit committee. And all they want is a personal guarantee and then I would be able to finance. So essentially, he got me to give a personal guarantee. And then he's now going to present the deal for the first time to the credit. And when he went to the credit said, we don't do acquisition financing in this bank. Our investment banking division in this bank does acquisition financing, but they only finance $50 million plus ticket. So, and it took almost a month and a half of back and forth for him to come to this conclusion. And he lied and he said that I've spoken to the credit committee. Because when I asked him, did you speak to the credit? He said no. But the first time I talked to him, he said yes. So people will lie to you. And that is something you have to factor in, and that is something you have to expect. Because I thought that, you know what, I'm entering into the business world, I'm always going to be honest, and I'm going to speak the truth. And if everybody's straightforward, things just work out, right? That was the attitude I have. But you have control over yourself. You don't have the control over the other person, and people tend to lie, and you should know how to catch them. So again, taking things at the face value is a big mistake. Then you've got involving family into business deals. So whatever plans that you have about your future, whether you plan to buy a house or you plan to do things with the money or how you plan to make the money, how much you want to make it, and what's your business model and what region you are trying to get into, do not reveal all of that information to your family. Why? Because especially your parents and people who are in positions of power. Why? Because they have invested a lot of time into you. They haven't invested a lot of money into you, and they have a vested interest in you, and they have a vested interest in your life, and they want that your life is connected to theirs. And that time that they invested was actually an investment. The money that they invested in your education was an investment that at some point you would reciprocate. So they want you to succeed, but they also want you under control. Otherwise, how would they benefit? So people, even in the family, have vested interest. Your friends have vested interest. You know, you don't want your best friend to all of a sudden get up and move to a different country and settle down with a Swedish girl, like you would miss that friend. Like, you have energy invested in that person. If anything, you would want him to take you with him, like you would want to talk about those things yourself. So the point is that people don't want to separate from relationships. And at times when you reveal the plans to them, they will do almost everything in their power to sabotage it. One of the classic examples that happened with me was that every time I would have a success in my company, that I would close a board member, I would close a law firm, or I would find a, multi-million dollar business, I would start to share it with the family. Oh, this is what happened today, and this is what I accomplished. And first thing, they are not doing those things. So it's really not related to them, and they can feel jealous, and they can feel insignificant, and they can feel vengeful. And also, there are established power structures in any environment, whether it's friendship or family. And when somebody starts to achieve more and more status, the status dynamic shifts in that environment. And people who are in positions of power start to lose their positions of power, and you start to have a lot more leverage because you're being successful. And people will feel this and start to attack your position, start to sabotage your plans. So in my case, I found a $10 million business that was willing to sell, and I found a deal. And I shared it with my brother, and he looked at the numbers and he looked at my face and he said, so now are you going to be richer than me? And it looks like you're going to have even more money than me. And I was like, I thought that was a good thing, that, we are a family and I have success. But in his mind, I would have more money than him. He's older than me. So I would get out of his control, and I would probably command the family. I would have the powerful position. And actually, you see this even in Godfather. In Godfather 2, Michael Corleone's brother, Fredo, he's the older brother, but Michael has all the power over the family, all the command. Of course, he's more competent. But Fredo gets jealous and actually leaks information to the enemies of the family and puts Michael's position in danger. And what was heart of the issue was vengeance. Another example is, if you have a wife and, you got married to her at a time where she wasn't, you weren't the most successful and she wasn't the most attractive, and, you were in love with each other, and you have been married now, she does not have that much of an incentive of you being rich and famous. Because let's say you become rich and famous, and you have a lot of money, you will come under the radar of many other women, and you may leave her. If she has insecurities, then, and she's not the best woman, and she knows that, then she would not want you to have success, because if you do, then you'll have options and you'll leave her, and she will be alone, and all the time she invested in you would be gone for waste. So it doesn't happen in every single relationship, but there are relationships where the girl doesn't feel that she deserves the guy anyway, and somehow has got her. And now if the guy achieves more and more success, then, that guy could just leave her because the guy has become more powerful. And it happens in the celebrity world, where a celebrity before getting famous, he had one girlfriend, and after getting famous, he's caught cheating or whatever, because now he has all these options. So women know that, they want to avoid it. My ex-girlfriend actually told me that some women use this tactic, that they learn how to cook really well, and they will keep feeding their boyfriends to make them fat, so that they become unattractive and actually get out of the radar, and they start losing attention of women, and they leave their man alone. So to get them to leave their man, they make them fat. So that's one of the methods that they use. Next is giving undue authority to the person in front of me and not realizing my own advantage. When we were at the castle seminar, me and my brother, we were wondering, that why would a high-profile CEO would want to partner up with us? Why would a CEO of a billion-dollar company who went to Harvard and has 30 years of experience would want to partner with someone who is in his mid-20s, who did not go to college and has, very little business experience and has the kind of success that that person has? Like, why would somebody of that stature partner up with someone who's young? And that is clear sign that of not realizing your advantage and giving undue authority to somebody. So there were times where I met high-profile executives who had gray hair, and just because somebody has gray hair, I gave them too much power, too much authority in my own mind. And just because someone has gray hair doesn't mean that they are smart or intelligent or anything like that. In fact, a lot of the times when I met someone like this, someone who has gray hair and who is a high-profile, skeptical executive, they were typically sitting in a small office and they were still employees, and they did not have significant power or status in the world. So even a lot of the executives I met did not have any, impressive, resources, so to speak, although they had tremendous credentials on the paper. So, but I still gave them unnecessary authority, and I did not realize the advantage I have. Because you, at your current position, especially if you're young, you might think that, oh, I did not go to Harvard, I did not work in a corporation in powerful positions, but you have something that they don't have, and that is youth. And they would, any day of the week, they would trade their positions with you. Because what you have is one of the most valuable resources on this planet, which is time and life. You can make a lot of mistakes when you're young. When you get to, 60, 70, which is a lot of these, that's the age in which a lot of these people would be, you do not have a lot of room to make mistakes. Not only that, you have existing obligations, you have, a couple of wives maybe, children, grandchildren, relatives, funerals, like you can't take too much debt. You don't know how long you're going to live. You don't know how much energy you're going to have. Like, there is just so many complications to being old, like really old. And by old, I don't mean 40 years old or even, 50 years old. I mean like, above 65, 70. So any person who is at that age and has a lot of wisdom, fine, but they also have a massive disadvantage. They cannot perform at the level that you could perform. And they know that energy is far more valuable than experience, because experience in the marketplace is very common. A lot of the people have a lot of experience. So really scarcity drives value. And, young entrepreneurs are really few in number. And young entrepreneurs who understand how to buy businesses and understand about entrepreneurship and have the right information are even rarer. And high-profile executives and experienced executives who have had operational experience are in a big quantity. So actually, I did not realize that I have an advantage and they have a disadvantage and I have the advantage. But I was talking to them in a manner as if like I am in a completely disadvantageous position, and these guys and the potential board members are trying to do me a favor. And as a result, a lot of the people, I allowed them to disrespect me. When you go to talk to someone, you're not applying for a job, especially when you are asking them to get into a business partnership with you and you're offering shares in your company. It's really something that you're going to offer. So if somebody disrespects you even a little bit, you have to get out of the door. You cannot tolerate something like this. I don't care what the age of the person is. You can't let people disrespect you like that. And I did allow some people to disrespect. It happened a few times, and then I blasted the third one, when it happened. And then all of a sudden that person respected me because he knew he crossed the line. And for whatever reason, because I had this thought that I'm at a disadvantageous position, I was giving him some communications and mannerisms that were kind of like a bait for him to disrespect me. So ignorance can be a source of lack of power. You may have the power, but you don't realize that you have the power. And that is really sad. So you have to realize what advantage you have. If you're young, you have tremendous advantage, and you have more advantage than you realize. Even if you didn't go to Harvard, even if you didn't have 30 years of experience. Experience costs time. Someone who has experience doesn't have time. And what's more valuable than experience is time. Because experience is available in the marketplace in ample amount. You can just partner up with many people who are older and you will have experience on the board. What's valuable is time. Who's going to execute, right? And if you're the one executing, you're adding tremendous value. And I was told actually by one of my board members, he corrected me. He said, Prithvi, I think you think that you are on our boat, but the truth is that we are on your boat. And he could not have summarized it in a better manner. And I realized that this is true, And once I understood my advantage, suddenly I walked different and I spoke from a position of authority, because everybody has something different to offer and you have to respect what you have and you have to realize the advantage that you have in these situations. And the final one is avoiding red flags. When you feel something in your gut, when you see something, you see some facial expression that should not be there, something that twitches in the cheek, or, like a light sparkles in somebody's eye, this violent sort of, short of greed that you might see in someone's eye, or, a vengeful expression that you might see just for a moment. You can't avoid those signs. And I have seen a lot of the times where when I shared about my success, people's eye just like twitches and they don't like it. They feel jealous. And people who have good intentions towards me, who are kind of like well-wishers, they feel happy and they want to congratulate me. But then there are people who listen to it and they can't help it but have this strong reaction. And their tone of voice changes, their mannerism changes, and you would feel it. When an emotion gets triggered in someone's body, on someone's face, whether they are lying to you or in a business meeting, they suddenly have this shot of jealousy. It really consumes their mind like a plague, like a poison, and they can't really stop thinking about that. And they are out to get you from that moment. So when you feel something like that, you got to get out of that situation. You cannot ignore those red flags and give them the benefit of the doubt. Business is not a place where you give people benefit of doubts. In a marriage, it's a different scenario, although I still wouldn't do it. Even in marriage, even in friendships, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't give benefits of doubt anymore, because people are not... I remember Robert Greene, he said, people don't do things once. We are creatures of habit. If some action, some nasty action came out of jealousy or vengeance, that jealousy has not really gone. It'll continue. And one of the several red flags I started to see in a person, he was one of my business partners who at the beginning said that, listen, I have to travel for a certain reason. And he said that his mother had just passed away. Okay, so I said, no problem, please go ahead and I hope everything becomes okay, etc., etc. After a couple of months, he came back and he said that, my mother used to say XYZ and my mother taught me well, and this is what she said. And then he said that she actually passed, she was a great woman. She passed 4 years ago. So I was like, what? I didn't say what. I just made a mental note of that this person just lied to me. And there was no reason for the person to lie to me. They could just tell me honestly. But what this person was trying to do was trying to showcase the work ethic that, oh, I'm going to be in UAE, I don't have to travel to this place, and this is an extreme reason, that's why I'm leaving. So I'm a dedicated board member, and as a result, you should give me XYZ equity, you should give me extra equity, etc., etc. So he was already cultivating a narrative where he said he's going to be more involved, and as a result, I should give him more equity. So if he says he wants to get more involved, and then he goes to another country to maybe spend some time with his family, I would bring that into the argument that you said that you were going to get involved, but you went for this trip with your wife or whatever. So he just lied and manipulated to me to get more equity. And I was like, oh. And then I had like several other occasions where this person like suddenly like lost control and showed like emotions of jealousy and anger and vengeance, as if like I had taken something from him. And, you know, when you're in positions of power, people really feel like you took something from them. You know, like a lot of the people, if someone's driving a sports car or with a beautiful girl, I have had experience where people like feel, and I've seen this, that people feel that that girl was supposed to be with this, you know, with me, you know, and this car should be mine, and this position should be mine, and this is what I wanted. This is the life I wanted, and this person is living my life. That's how they experience these things sometimes. And like people like have this tendency to look at something they desire and say that this is mine, right? And whoever has that thing, that person took it from me or took my thing, took my claim. And then the person really gets into a violent dynamic with that person. So maybe this person saw me and wanted to be in my position when he was young, but now he's much older and he is not in my position and he wants to take me out. And he's jealous of the fact that I'm unmarried, I'm free, I'm single, and I have accomplished this at a very young age, and like he hasn't, and he has fewer years to live, and I have a lot more. So it can get, jealousy. It's a perfect grounds for him to be jealous, and jealousy doesn't lead to positive outcomes. And everything that I accomplished was on my merit, on hard work, and he had no right to go against me, but he used it to go against me. And ultimately, it took me 1.5 years to get rid of him, but he eventually got really close to me. He posed as a friend, even though there were red flags. I allowed him to do that, and he created this dependency for a long time to ultimately start controlling me. And then it became very difficult for me to go get rid of him. And then I got rid of him. But I could have gotten rid of him much earlier, where I had not given him any shares. You know, papers weren't signed, and it was much easier to get rid of him. But things got a little bit out of hand, so I ignored red flags. You know, similarly, there's one time I met a seller who said that this is a business I have, and this is what it's doing, and I also have this expansion plan. And then he went back to the business and he started to explain me things. So I was like, so can you tell me a little more about the expansion plan? And then he goes, we'll talk about this later. It's not that important. You know, this is what is important. And he just hid a whole, expansion plan that he had already put in place, that he had planned to execute. And he did not actually plan to sell the company completely. He just wanted us to finance the expansion. So what he wanted to do was just create a valuation for this piece of the deal. Once the value is established for this piece, he would say, actually, I'm also doing the expansion. So how much are you going to value the expansion? We need to add that in the deal. So he had this plan from the very beginning. He even mentioned expansion, but he just said, we'll talk about this later and let's stick to this. You don't have to worry about this. But he just almost requested me to walk over that detail. That was a major detail that would change the entire deal dynamic. And just because he said, oh, let's walk over this, I was like, okay, So you can't do that. And for a long time, I started to wonder, what was this expansion? And then more red flags popped up. So you cannot avoid red flags. And the way you avoid red flags could be in the form of giving benefits of doubt. Like, 3 warnings. I give you 1 warning, 2nd warning, 3rd warning, or just like just plain avoidance, plain negligence. You can't do that. Anything. There are no coincidences. If something happens, you felt something, you saw something. Like, don't ignore what you saw. You know what you saw. When your girlfriend looks at the phone and is giggling, or tries to turn it around, like, don't turn a blind eye to that because it's convenient. It's not a one-off thing. Like, let's not be in denial is all I'm saying, because we do see these things and we don't want to confront. Because if I would have confronted him, the deal would have created right there. And if I would have poked it a little more, the deal would have created. And I would have saved like probably 1.5 years. So another incident that I now remember is that one person just got a deal to me, and it was roughly around $10 million. And I said, can you give me audited financials? And he kept dodging the question. And then finally, I said, do you have audited financials or not? Again, dodging the question. So he wasn't telling me straight. And then I realized he didn't have, enough influence into the situation. And then I had to get in and get the influence. And then I had to get rid of, I had to break up the partnership, and which is what I did. So something happens. Somebody's not being straight with you. Somebody's hiding with you. You see some micro expression on the face. You see a person's body move in a certain way. You just sit down, and suddenly, all of a sudden, you get into this realization that, am I being taken for a ride? Am I being manipulated right now? Like, something shifts in the room. The oxygen gets sucked out, or people around you are looking at you in a way that you are a sucker in this situation. Like, you suddenly discover yourself as the sucker in the situation. I mean, when that happens, it's most likely true, because your mind is signaling you that something is not okay in this environment. You're being taken for a ride, and you have to trust your own mind. And people will make you not trust your mind by telling you that you're seeing things, you're imagining things. How could you think? How could you doubt me? Are you having doubts on me? And your frame has to be fundamentally, I don't trust anybody. That should be your frame. You should always trust that people will always act in their own interest first and will not consider you at all if they don't have an incentive in you. And people always move towards gain and move away from loss. That much you can trust. You can trust their greed and you can trust their fear, but you cannot trust their moral character or virtuous nature. The moment someone tries to give me quotes from Bible or any of the religious books, I'm like, listen, I'm not buying this, like, tell me a valid reason why this is in your benefit to do it, and then I'll believe you. And why is it not in your benefit to fuck me? And then I'll believe you. But don't tell me that, oh, there was one time someone told me that, Prithvi, I will never do anything wrong with you because money has energy. If I do something wrong with you, and if I gain some money and I pay for my school, my son's tuition, then he would be thrown out. Something bad will happen with that money. So I really believe that money should be, money has energy and things have to be done ethically. And this is the same person, when I got into the financial statements, all kinds of funky stuff came out. Okay. So any demonstration of virtuous character, you can just plain ignore it. Okay. Deep down, we know the truth. Okay. So there is motivations of greed. As long as, their greed is in helping you or supporting you, then you can trust that, okay, this guy has an incentive in me So he's going to act in my own best interest. Not because of the virtuous character, because this person has an incentive in me. This person has an incentive in this deal. It doesn't make sense for this person to go against me. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make financial sense. It's actually against this person's interest to go against me. That you can trust, but not the virtuous and moral character. So don't avoid the red flags. So these are some of the mistakes I made. These are only a few. There are a lot more, but these are some of the fundamental ones that I wanted to share with you. And I will talk to you soon. If you like the video, hit that subscribe button, like button, and I'll talk to you soon.